Okay. Okay. Hello. Oh, hey, what's up?
Oh, not your first student, second student. Well, I'm the same man.
Yeah, thanks for setting everything up.
Looks like you got everything going almost.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be like this style tonight? Do you bring a table that I can help set up for you?
Well, everyone's gonna be on the laptop, but I guess.
I mean, it's good if you have a table you can put that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Here, don't worry about that. I'll set up some tables.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we got about 12.
Okay. Okay.
That's good. Is it? Oh, nice to meet you. Awesome. Also, they can have some tea, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got my slides.
I'm putting all supplies on this table tonight, including the Wi-Fi password if anyone asks.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm gonna put some people with you, okay?
Sounds good. the the early arrivals get to sit with teacher.
Yeah. Hey, can I shift you back a little bit by any chance?
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Cool. Yeah, it's for the people that are in the couches. Yeah. Oh well.
I feel like the couch is the luxury seat.
Yeah. VIP. Let's see.
What's your name? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test.
Nice.
Test, 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 test. Ah, okay, now I gotta get the... Okay, now I gotta get the desktop audio working. Let's see, how did I do this last time? There's a couple people joining us remotely, but I expect 25 minus 4 is 21 plus 1 is 22, minus 2 is 20, so there's 20 total that could show up in person. At least 2 of them are going to be joining remote, which is 18. And then, okay. I don't need to figure it out. I want to get it on that going to yeah, I love it work. Yeah, I don't know how to do it for all. it though.
Nothing's gonna stop our love. You're the only thing I want forever.
I know I should sleep, but the voices in my head go, 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 voices in my head go. I know I should sleep, but the voices in my head go.
Anyone else talk about that? Workout. All right, everyone. Welcome to the first session of EDM 101, Approaching the Auditory Mythic. I'm your host, David Schimmel, and we are going to learn how to make some dope beats in this class. So, today we're going to get our DAW set up. I know some of y'all are on Logic, but we'll be mostly doing Ableton, and we'll get our samples in place. Then I'll give a little history of EDM, because I think it's fun to see just where we are in this great tradition of ours. Hold on, I'm getting a phone call from one of the students. 1 second. Hey, what's up? All right, he hung up. Anyway, so yes, we'll place ourselves in the context of this great tradition of electronic dance music. touch on genres a little bit because I know those are a hot topic in EDM. Then we'll get oriented in Ableton. Hello, hello. Come have a seat wherever you like. We're just getting started. I'll talk about a basic project template that I like to use just to keep everything organized, which we can use for our other songs. And then we'll talk about loops and how to warp them and chop them up and stuff. It's one of the fundamental sort of building blocks for songs, and I think one of the most approachable. We'll talk a little bit about some effects, and then how to export and share your work, and then I'll send you all off with some homework. So, setup. So if you haven't installed Ableton yet, now's a good time to do that while I'm talking about the history of EDM. You got a couple options here. You can get the trial. If you're on iOS, the cheapest option is to download Ableton Note for like $7, and then you get a license key for Ableton Lite Live. You can also get the full version. They recently added a rent-to-own version, which is kind of nice. You're also welcome to use other DAWs if you like. I won't necessarily, hey man, what's up? I won't necessarily be able to help you debug stuff, but most of what I'll be teaching here is generally applicable, no matter what software you're using. Let me make sure people are looking on the stream. Okay, cool. And you can also download some samples here to get you started. The basic version of Ableton does come with some samples, but cymatics is one of the key purveyors of audio crack in our industry, so they're a great resource for samples and stuff. I put some of them on this drive link here, which is also in the Discord. You can also check out freesound.org to get random free samples, but my favorite tool for this is called Splice. You basically pay them a monthly fee and you get a certain number of credits. You can use those to buy samples, and they have a nice VST that integrates with your DAW, so you can actually bring those directly into your DAW. It's a nice fluid way to work, but it does cost a little bit of money, so but I think they make a great product. Cool. So with that, let's talk about the history of EDM. All right, so in 1857, the phone autograph was invented. You could record sound with it, but you couldn't play it back. So, you can capture lightning in a bottle, but you can't really do a whole lot with it. It took another 20 years for our boy Thomas Edison to invent the phonograph. So, think about this, 1877, that's like, 150 years ago. So we really haven't been at this for very long. But this is kind of what we're building on. This is the basis for sampling, which is one of our key techniques here for making EDM. Fast forward to the 1940s, you have a movement called musique concrète, which of course means concrete music. And the idea here is that instead of writing down musical notation as one would for classical music, you capture specific sounds, you record them, they are concrete, like a specific sound, and you use razor blades to chop up your tape, and you splice it together. So really early version of the sampling process that we all know and love from hip hop. But at one time this was considered classical music, which I think is kind of funny. Reminds me of that Futurama joke about listening to classical music from the year 2000. In the 50s, we started to get hardware synthesizers. So y'all may have heard of Robert Moog, who invented the Moog synthesizer. There's an artist by the name of Wendy Carlos who popularized it with her Switched On Box series, where she played classical music, but on the Moog synthesizer using a purely synthetic sound palette. And this is where we draw much of our tones for electronic music from these early pioneers. And these synths are still sought after because they have that warm analog sound. In the 60s, turntablism, DJing became a thing that people started doing. Being able to transition between two tracks and kind of keep this continuous flow of dance music going so that people could really stay locked in the groove. And besides the sonic manipulation techniques that allowed. But this is, this is how we tend to perform EDM music live, generally speaking, is we DJ them between, we DJ multiple tracks together in a continuous mix. 10 years later, the disco movement started, and everyone loves to hate on disco, but they did push our art form to the next level. People were making custom speaker setups with enhanced bass response so that you could really feel the music in a way that wasn't really possible until disco came along, and people were getting obsessed with feeling the bass. Let's see, I heard my Discord chirp at me. Giovanni Giorgio. Let's see, where were we? So in this, one of the core elements of EDM is this like full-bodied sensory experience of it, and like you're not just listening to music with your ears, but with your whole body. So thank you, disco. In the 80s, we get hip hop. We start to have digital sampling, using computers to store recorded audio. So you can manipulate it in a much more fluid way. You don't have to, chop up tape or deal with vinyl records. We also get the TR-808 drum machine, which produces this iconic, like, deep bass sound that is the foundation for so many hip hop records, and was really, when it first came out, it was considered a toy, and it wasn't very popular. But then it became rediscovered by the hip hop heads, and the bass sound called an 808 gets its name from this specific piece of hardware. In the 90s, we really start to see the influence of computers taking off, not just in electronic music, but in music in general, with the release of Pro Tools. And Steinberg came out with their VST interface for developing software that can be used in all sorts of different DAWs for manipulating audio. Still probably not affordable to your average person. Computers are still pretty expensive in the 90s, but starting to really become a consumer. Your average consumer is getting closer to being able to afford this stuff. In the 2000s, the internet comes alive. Moving beyond 56K to high-speed internet. Now, the traditional gatekeepers of record labels are no longer so easy to keep the signal from the people. So, you have tools like CD Baby, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud. The early 2000s are really characterized by this ability to get your sound out to the people, and whole new avenues of discovering up-and-coming artists become viable, and you don't need to print your music onto arbitrary plastic discs or whatever so that people can hear them. In the 2010s, computer technology has finally advanced to the point where a laptop can process sound at at both a high sample rate and processors are really fast enough to keep up. So if you think about like the CPU in a $200 laptop. Actually, this slide is even probably out of date. You could probably get one in like a $20 like a Raspberry Pi these days. But the clock cycle for a CPU is like 4 to 5 orders of magnitude higher than the sample rate needed for CD quality audio. So imagine your CPU is running at like 1 billion operations per second, and CD quality audio is 44,000 kilohertz. So from your CPU's perspective, if it took like 1 second to do an operation, it would have 3 hours to compute the next value in a piece of in like an audio stream. So so now you get people like Skrillex who can produce a chart-topping, Grammy-winning record on their MacBook, and that was in 2010. And then, of course, in 2020, we have Suno, Udio, Sora, all these different AI tools for generating music. And you might be wondering, like, why are we even learning how to use Ableton when Suno can make a track in 5 minutes that sounds, professional quality? For me, I think it comes down to craftsmanship. Like, sure, anyone can print AI slop till the cows come home, but knowing how to guide the AI and how to what sounds good, what kind of sound you're going for. I think, that's something you can really only develop by getting really deep in the weeds of, making audio the old-fashioned way, old-fashioned, maybe 20 years old, but still. And there's new AI native DAWs coming out, like Suno has one, and probably the future of music production will look more like a deep collaboration with AI. But from my perspective, it's really just a continuation of this technological trend that we've been riding for the last 150 years. So that's where we are today. So let's talk about we now have extra really amazing tools for pulling vocals from a song, so we can do remixes of we don't need to have the actual stems to do a remix now. We can just extract the vocal really easily with AI, so it opens up even more possibilities for audio manipulation. So it's a fun time, I think, to be involved in electronic music. All right, so genres. Everyone talks about genres in EDM, dubstep, hardstyle, trance, techno. What is all that crap? But as my sci-fi teacher said, genres are defined by their conventions. So, in house and trance, you have this idea of the 4 on the floor beat. And so when you hear that, it's a house song or it's a trance song. Entire genres have been spawned by like short clips of audio. So you might check out this amen break, which has been chopped up and resampled and turned upside down by thousands of tracks, and the whole genre of jungle is basically defined by this 1 6-second audio clip. Or maybe in hardcore you have this Hoover sound. It's like this really deep siren-esque sawtooth sound that sounds really intense and in your face and is perfect for this genre, and continues to get used on tracks to this day, even though the sound itself is decades old. So conventions help people understand your music or like grok it really easily or immediately, so it creates like a point of connection. But of course, if your music is entirely based on just stringing a bunch of conventions together, it kind of sounds boring or conventional. So that's this like key challenge of EDM. You need some degree of repetition so that people can dance to it and groove to it, because it's electronic dance music. It's not electronic sit on your couch music. I guess people, you could, but so convention. So balancing this, these repeated patterns with like novelty and your own innovative sound selection is kind of this key challenge of EDM. And if you want to go deep into genres, you can explore Ishkur's guide. He's got this really great map of like genres throughout the decades, and it turns into this like really cool chart. I'll just bring it up on the screen here real quick. But if you've ever wondered how did techno evolve to where it is today, you can look at this graph, and each one of these has some examples that show you what each one sounds like. So for me, I don't necessarily try to make music in a certain genre, but knowing these genres can give you some ideas for like what tools you can use and apply to your own music to get a certain kind of sound or feeling. All right, so with that, let's get oriented with Ableton. Okay, yeah. Let me just check on the stream real quick. Let me pause the ads again.
Can I just shout out a Robert Glasper quote that jazz is the mother of hip-hop?
Jazz is the mother of hip-hop. I could see that.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, and jazz also likes to pull from all sorts of different sources of inspiration. I think that's what makes EDM fun too. It becomes this great like integrator of all parts of our culture. Like anything that has a sound associated with it can be turned into a groove. And in fact, if you're trying to get your music out there, I think one good social media strategy is to like take some sounds you find in a video, remix that, and then attach the video to it, and then you have like a naturally built-in audience. That's how I got my one viral video on Instagram. And it also gets people to naturally care about your music. All right, so let's open up Ableton. Check the Discord.
Yeah, just in case people are wondering, like people were doing non pre-transistor computer music, including at Columbia in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are also classical people mostly.
Right.
Yeah. Before you get like cheap computers, you have these big, like supercomputer sized things that you need to get one sample out.
Yeah. They really cared about that, that approach to making music enough to pioneer the technology for us. So now we can just enjoy the fruits of their labor. Okay, so here we are in this confusing and overwhelming interface that no one could possibly figure out, right? No, we're going to figure it out. And I know some of you might be on Ableton 11. It's basically the same as 12. It's just got some different. It's got some additional features in 12. But so this view we're looking at here, this is the timeline view or the arrangement view. And this is where we're going to be putting in all of our samples, loops, MIDI clips, everything that generates sound in our project, and we're arranging them over time. Like you can see down here, we have the showing us how deep we are into the song, and you can stack layers vertically here. Here you can arrange sounds on top of each other. If you press tab, you switch over to this mixer view. This one we don't need so much, but if you're doing if you're like mixing your track and getting the levels right, it can be helpful to have these meters to show you like how loud each of the tracks are. This is also used for some of the live aspects in Ableton Live. These little sections here, you can drop in different clips and then you can trigger them in a way that's synced to the tempo. We're not really going to talk too much about the live part of Ableton Live. We're mainly just using it as our DAW, but just in case you're curious as to what those are. But we'll be spending most of our time here in the arrangement view, so get familiar with it. Along the right-hand side here, this is where all of your tracks are. And I have, this is my template project, so it's got a bunch of, it's got several different groups in it, bass, foreground, background. And so you can have individual tracks, you can group tracks together for batch processing. And, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but this is where all of your individual tracks live. So if you want to make a new audio track, for instance, you can right click in here and insert an audio track. You can insert a MIDI track. We'll get more into the difference between the audio and MIDI later, but if you want to add a new source of sound to your mix, you will create a new track for it. Also, some of you are probably if you're on Ableton Live Lite or the Intro edition, you'll be limited in the number of tracks you can have going on in your project, but there are ways to work around that, which we'll get into in a bit. Let's see, a couple other things. So these yellow numbers here, these let you mute and unmute a track. If it's off, it's muted. You also have this solo button, so if you just want to hear one track at a time, you can click the solo button. This number here, this is the gain on your track, so it starts at 0. If you want to turn it down, you just click and drag it down. And then you also have this left and right pan slider if you want to move your sound around in the stereo field. And then these little negative infinity to 0 sliders, these are your sends, which we'll get into a little bit later, but they connect down here to your reverb and delay sends. But we won't need them quite yet. Let's see, what else? If you're recording, you would use this button right here to arm the track for recording. We're not really going to get into that too much in this session, but that's what this will be used for. And then there's a couple other things here that we don't quite need yet, but so that's those are your tracks. in the left-hand side panel, this is your this is like your artist's palette. So here you're going to have everything from your samples to your like MIDI instruments, your VST instruments, effects, things like grooves, which are patterns you can apply to your loops to give them like swing or shuffle. Today we're mostly going to be using our samples. So let's start by so all those thematic samples you downloaded. Let's start by bringing those into Ableton. So
is this template somewhere or?
Yeah, I'll show y'all how to set up the template in a second. But on the left-hand side, you should see, some option to add a folder, and you can click that, and then wherever you downloaded your samples to, just select that folder like I did here with the cymatic samples. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shout them out, or you can post in the Discord if you're on the live stream. Let's see, did anyone else join? Let me pause and unpause the ads again. Okay, so this is, so was everyone able to do that? Now you should have all these like different folders showing up here. You can explore them. You can search for a given sample, or, well, this search bar lets you search for anything. So if you want to find, bass, then it will filter down to everything that has bass in it. If you want to find like a kick drum sample, you can type in kick. And it's scoped to whatever folder you're in here. So, all right, and then if you don't, let's just talk quickly about this bar down here. So this is these are where all your effects are going to go. So, like if I have my kick drum or my kick track set up here, selected here, you'll see that I have an EQ effect on it. I have this utility on it, and so this is where all of your audio processing is going to go. What's up, Mercer?
Can you just talk a little bit slower?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
It's a bit fast for me right now. Yeah, I'm still recording some of the folders, so.
Oh, okay. My B. Sorry, I drank a Red Bull before I got here.
Yeah, I just uploaded my cymatics with like samples. So
Okay.
it's
Cool. Nice. In fact, let me reset this here. How are folks on the live stream doing?
do you need to set up your Ableton like to specify like headphone output or anything like that, or I'm just curious.
Yeah, question was, do you need to set up Ableton to send your audio to headphone output? So if you go to options and settings, or you can press Control comma, you can, and you go to the audio panel here, you can change your output config. Are you on a Mac or a PC?
Yeah, on Mac. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Okay. You may also have to go into like your Mac's settings or audio settings, and select your headphones rather than your speakers. Mm-hmm. Oh, I hear some Discord activity. All right, Pyle asks, how do I load the samples into Ableton? So on the left-hand side here in the palette, what do they call it here? The browser, okay. In the browser, which you can toggle here with this button up here. You should have an option under the Places heading to click and add a folder, and then you can select the folder wherever you downloaded your samples to. By the way, another helpful window to enable is this info view. So if you can use question mark to toggle it on and off, or you can go to view info. And then anything you hover over, be it a parameter or a section of the UI, it'll tell you what that is. So that can really help orient you. And also, if you're streaming, it's a nice place to put your camera feed where it won't interfere with anything else. And I just realized that if my camera feed is there, then you can't see it. So let me move myself over here. Here's where the info view panel shows up if you toggle it on and off with the question mark. Let's see. Did that answer your question, Pyle? I know the live stream is also on a few seconds delay, so let's see what I was going to say. Oh yeah, you can also close this little panel down here by hovering your mouse. A lot of your standard software gestures will work here. You can make this sidebar thinner too if you like. Hold on, my colleague, oops, Tyler. Let me. Someone needed the live stream link. X.com, the everything app. Okay. All right. How are folks doing?
You haven't uploaded the template or anything yet, right?
No, I'll show you all how to set that up.
I have a question.
What's up?
How do you delete one that you downloaded, like a folder? Is it just the remove from the sidebar, or does that just move it somewhere else?
You can. You want to just completely delete it off of your computer?
I added a folder that didn't unzip the files first. So now I have this random folder with nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you just remove it from the sidebar, you should be good to go.
So you unzip the folder inside.
Oh, you can do that?
You can just unzip it and reload it.
Oh.
All right, so hopefully people are feeling somewhat oriented. By the way, you can travel forward and backward through your track using this slider up here, or you can hold down Shift and slide your mouse wheel up and down, or use your trackpad to slide left and right. How do I switch to the timeline view? The default has columns with MIDI, audio, and etc. Right, so use the tab button. You can switch between the mixer view and the arrangement view. There's also this, this icon down here in the bottom right corner that lets you, well, you can bring up sort of a split pane view here. Yep. But you can use tab to make that full screen. A lot of Michaels in this class. Cool, so another thing y'all can try while everyone is getting oriented is if you make a new audio track and you go into your folder where you added those samples. Sorry, let me add them here. You can pick a sound you like and you can drag it into your audio track and it will show up there. drag in a whole loop. Dragging a whole loop there. And of course, and you can audition your loops as well by, or you can audition your samples by clicking on the sample in the browser view. Let's see where we are in the deck. Okay. And you may notice that some of these loop samples, they have a BPM associated with them. That stands for beats per minute. So that's the number of, higher BPM implies a faster tempo of the track, more beats in a given minute. And the corresponding setting in Ableton is up here. It defaults to 120 beats per minute, but you can change it to, I think you can go up to 999. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but some people want to make some crazy fast music, or you can go as low as 20. And tempo is one of those attributes that goes into a genre of music. Like house might be at 128, dubstep's at 140, trap is at 150. Yeah. So when you decide what kind of song you want to make, you'll probably change the BPM to something appropriate.
Do people slow down and speed up a lot or no?
Like in a DJ set, or in a given song?
Given song.
So usually for EDM, you keep your tempo the same the whole way, but there are these special tracks called DJ tools that have a built-in tempo transition. So like one of the harder things about DJing is when you want to go from one tempo to another. So if you have a track that does it for you, you just can use that and then transition that way. Not necessarily, because if you're going half time to double time or regular time, that's just a power of 2. And so that, like if you wanted to go from 75 beats per minute to 150, those are kind of the same tempo because, how to explain this? With 150, for a track at like 75, each measure is equivalent to 2 measures of a track at 150. So everything would still line up nicely. So you could, you wouldn't necessarily need to adjust the tempo. You wouldn't need a special track to adjust the tempo to keep it perfectly in sync, if that makes sense.
What's the typical range of beats per minute?
Let's see. Mid-tempo tracks are like 100. You might have like hip hop or boom bap type sounds that are like in the 80s. Some classical music is 60 beats per minute, like a really like a nocturne or something. You have psytrance at 150, drum and bass at 168. There's styles like gabber that go up to 200 and beyond. But yeah, typical ranges I'd say anywhere from like 100 to 170, 175. 175 is pretty brisk. That'd be like happy hardcore. But what's up?
What is an example of it coming out of like one side of the headphone? Is it like
Well, it could be that your headphones are broken. It could be that you have a stereo sample that only has information in one channel. It could be a few things. Let me look at your setup. What do you see?
some it's picking like this group, and then
Here, can you drag it into the timeline view for me there?
yeah, sure.
Okay, it looks stereo, so I'd say your issue is probably your headphones, or it could be your audio driver. You might have Maybe your headphone isn't plugged in quite all the way. Is it doing that with every sample or just that one?
Every sample.
You might go to your audio settings and check out your output config. You might only be outputting left to the left. It could be you might have it panned all the way to the left. No, I don't see that. Those are your headphones. I would also check to see if you place some audio like a
non-Ableton.
something outside of Ableton. That's another good debugging step. All right, I heard this blink. Can you change the BPM of different tracks to line them up? Yes. So we're going to talk about. Michael asks, can you change the BPM of different tracks to line them up? Yes, we will talk about warping here in a second, but let's quickly set up our template project. So my sort of framework for thinking about producing EDM is there's like 4 main categories of sound. So there's drums, bass, background elements like pads or arps or chords, and foreground elements. So like the lead, a vocal, the main thing that people want to pay attention to. So I like to set my default project up to reflect that. So I would have, let's say, so Ableton lets you group tracks together, and you can't have empty groups, so you need to have at least one track in your groups. So if you select a track and you press Control-G, or alternatively you right-click and you say Group Tracks, then that lets you put a track in a group. So I would call this, and you can select a group or a track and press Control-R to rename it, or you can right-click and click Rename to rename it. So I would call this group Drums. You can also change the color, so it can be nice to use colors to kind of keep your different groups separated. And maybe I'd have my one track in here called like kick. The kick is the most important drum in EDM, by the way. It's like the heartbeat of your track. I'm not sure if you can actually have an EDM track that doesn't have a kick drum in it, but it's the thing that like thumps you in the chest and is the sort of bedrock of your track. And then I'd also make a group for my bass. And again, bass is another one of those like bedrock elements that you really feel in your guts when you hear it. And if you only had drums and bass, that would be enough to make a danceable tune. And in fact, a lot of EDM tracks at a key moment, they will just break it down to just the kick drum and the bass, and then they will build up from there. So we'd have our drums, our bass. Then we'd have make another group for our background elements. Stuff that gives the track texture, ambience. If you're thinking of like a painting where you have let's say you're painting a person, you want them to be situated in a space, in a location. So, but the background is not the main focal point of your track. But if you don't have it, it can make your track sound empty or kind of dry. So background elements are, the other important, another of these important factors. And then finally, you could have your, a group for your foreground elements. So things like your leads, your vocals, anything that's like the main thing you want your listener to pay attention to. And so I like this framework because it, gives you a place to put sounds, and then you can also do things like, what's up?
How are you adding tracks to you're doing Control-G once you hit it?
Oh yeah.
And how, if I have another audio track, can I put it into a group, and how do I do that?
Yeah. So if you want to, so I'll just explain here what I'm doing with grouping tracks together. So if let's say I create an audio track, if I select that track and press Control G, I group it. Now let's say I have another audio track and I want to put it in this group. I can click and drag it in, and now it's within this group. And you can also click and drag them out.
Yep.
But you can't have an empty group, so it won't let me just drag a track completely out of the group and such that it would be empty. Maybe I would call this one lead. So call this one foreground. Yeah, maybe I'd call, I don't know, call this one like texture. And then maybe I have my default bass track, call it something like sub. Cool. And then this is kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but you can also group groups together. So you can click one track and you can use Control to select other ones, or you can click one of them and hold down Shift and click to select multiple. That's a pretty standard UI gesture in software. And then so I'd select all these, I'd group them together, and then maybe I'd call this something like, I forget what I called it in my template, but I don't know, maybe song or something. I don't know. Anyway, the reason to do this is that now I can make a separate audio track and group it, and I'll call this the reference. So when you're mixing a song at the end, it can be really hard to understand if the different elements are at the right levels just sort of in a vacuum. Like the human mind doesn't work that way. It likes to have two things to compare to each other. So when you're doing the final mix down, you often want to have like a track that kind of sounds like what you're going for. And if you put them in a group like this, it lets you easily A/B test them against each other. And then you can put all of your like mastering effects, like your limiter and any kind of like EQ you want to do. You can put it on just your track, and then whatever reference track you're looking at, you can bring that in here, and that way it won't get processed by your mastering chain. Whereas if you put all that stuff on the main channel, then it'll distort your reference track, and you won't really be able to hear the levels properly. So we'll get more into that when we actually do it, but this would be sort of like the final touch I'd add. What's up, Mercer?
How did you make the group of the tracks?
Mercer asked, how do you make the group of tracks? So if you have a single audio track, let's say, you can right click and select group tracks, or you can also press Control G to group them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like when we start adding some more like drum tracks here, we can process them all together with like the same limiter effect to kind of glue all the drums together, for instance. Or maybe when we want to side chain the kick to the bass, we can put that compressor on the bass group, and then we don't have to do it on every single bass channel itself. It'll just be one and done. Okay. Oh, thank you, Momo, for the shortcuts link in the Discord. Let's see. Yes, but you don't see this yet. So let's see. Anything on that? Let's see. Entropic Symmetry asks, could you clarify your question out, Entropic? Don't see the browser. If to the person on the live stream, if your question was about how to see the browser, you can click this. You can click this little icon in the upper left-hand corner to hide and show it. Yeah.
I'm struggling with getting the Sonax sample
audio when you select these? When you audition these? What version?
I'm trying to add the drum track to the sound. You just drag and drop.
Yeah.
It just moves.
Should we try restarting Ableton?
Yeah. Are you trying to add a track to a group?
Yeah, so I want to add the drums as like a sub track of the song.
Okay.
Oh, is the song a group or a track?
Folks on the live stream, just helping someone debug something real quick.
Or maybe I should do this first. Okay.
Does the song have any?
No, it had just itself.
Okay,
So let's try this now. Oh, it's working now. Okay.
Yeah. Because the song, I think, is not.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it must be something to do with the.
What's that one?
Huh?
What's that one?
It's random.
Yeah.
That would work.
I think the ones that download aren't working. It's always one if it's like a licensing thing.
The audio even keeps turning on.
Where did you download them to?
I went to the phone drive here.
Oh, on Drive.
Is that maybe why should I just leave it in the downloads?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why it should stop you from loading it from the thumb drive. But if it's on your hard drive itself, it should. I mean, it was working for the samples that came with.
You probably had solo selected for that. Just ask this for solo.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
you can see that one playing here.
I wonder if your
Because
thumb
there's
drive
no
is
bass
offline.
here. It's not when you you say it's only highlights on the
Yeah, see, those are all grayed out. Okay, so I guess that has something to do with your thumb drive. Okay. Cool. Oops. Yeah. All right. So now, if we want to, save this, template as our default, then you can go to File and save live set as default set, and then you name it default. And I'm not going to overwrite mine, but now next time you open Ableton, it would be you'll have this already set up for you, so you can just move. And like I have, when I DJ with Ableton, I also have like this DJ template that's got some decks with different effects on it, and like some instruments loaded up for me, so I can just play. And you can name these templates anything you want, so you can just switch between them. So.
And this is Ableton specific, right? Like I can't take this template and plug it into Reaper or something.
Yeah, this template is a Ableton template. There's nothing. It's specific to Ableton. And by the way, you can also make tracks have defaults. So you might notice that all of my tracks are at -9 dB. The reason I do this is because you want to maintain what's called headroom. You don't want your sounds to clip. And if you start mixing a lot of sounds together that are at the max volume already, then anytime two of them play together, they'll clip. So I like to set all my tracks at -9 by default. And then when you do that, you can right click on the track and you can say save as default, in this case MIDI track, or you can save as default audio track. And then anytime you create a new audio or MIDI track, it'll automatically be -9 dB. Now, and you can, at the end, when you're mastering your tracks, that's when you can bring everything up to unity gain. Cool. All right, so that's how you create templates. Oh yeah, I guess I called this one main and I called this one reference. Let's see. Any questions in the Discord on the live stream? No? Okay, we're good. Okay.
When you have a group and you set the audio level for the group, so you have like an audio track which has its own audio level, and then you have a group that's part of that has its own audio level.
Yep.
Is the group decreasing all of its child tracks?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So if I adjust the gain of the group, it'll make the whole group louder or softer.
Okay.
So like in my DJ template, for instance, I have, well, actually this isn't showing anything related to groups, but actually this should be -3, so I need to save that. File save as template. Yes. So like here I just have my deck set at -3 dB by default, and then I have a limiter at the end that raises everything back up 3 dB. So, but this just means that like when I play 2 tracks at the same time, it ensures that they won't clip.
When you say clip, you just mean the volume isn't the same, so that it's hard to differentiate.
Okay, yeah. So clipping. Let me bring in a waveform here.
Wait, before you explain that.
Oh, yep.
I didn't get how to set the volume as a default volume.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you change your volume to like -9 or whatever, you can right click on that audio track and you can say save as default audio track.
Okay, got it.
And then every subsequent track you make will have those settings. But all right, if I bring in like a some loop or something, and I zoom in here, if I turn the volume on this track way up, you can see that it starts to like get chopped off at the top, and it starts to sound like really distorted. Actually, that's not a good example. Hold on, let me get something really nasty sounding. I mean, this already sounds pretty juicy anyway, but okay. So it sounds like this, and then if I make it clip, it does get louder, but it also gets really distorted. And this can be a desirable sound, but you're also basically losing information. You get this crackly, distorted sort of sound, and generally you don't want your sounds to go above 0. You're like telling this audio like just go really loud, and I don't care how or let's see. You're basically transforming the waveform from this, thing that has a lot of detail and complexity and interest, and you're just making it into this sort of like square thingy that sounds really digital and harsh. And that's generally something you want to avoid. But it is loud, so that can be nice. You might have heard of the loudness wars. To make your sound stand out, you try to pack even more area under the curve here into your sound, so it's like louder. And there's genres like tear out dubstep where they really try to get their waveforms looking like these jagged square things because that's really loud and in your face. But for like classical music, you want to preserve dynamics, so you really don't want to clip there. It'll just sound undesirable. Yeah. If you're not redlining, you're not headlining. So yeah, finding that balance of preserving dynamics but being loud enough is kind of another one of these challenges with EDM. But there are ways to accomplish that, like side chaining and careful mixing, and we'll definitely get into that later in the course. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions here on the stream? Okay. I don't see the same. Okay. Yeah, Entropic, I'm happy to look at your setup on Wednesday. All right, let me pause and turn off the ads. Okay. All right, so I think, has everyone been able to like add, remove tracks, group them, create a template, kind of get some of those, and drag in some samples into their arrangement view and play them back? Anyone? Okay, cool. So, what's up?
I have like a kick drum question. So when I'm thinking about the drum track on an EDM song, how does that relate to like playing an actual drum kit in, let's say, a rock or a jazz? Like in terms of like where do the beats go and stuff, or how should I conceptualize the balance of various drum, like toms versus kick versus?
Yeah, we'll get more into like the specifics of drums in a bit, maybe on Wednesday,
okay.
And maybe a little bit today, but we will certainly talk about that. But I want to get to the part where we're kind of playing around with our Lego blocks here. So let's talk about loops. So loops are these pre-made segments of audio that contain like a snippet of a particular instrument doing something. Like it could be a drum loop where it's like, a drum pattern being played, or it could be a bass loop where it's like a cool bass pattern being played. And on these websites like Splice, they offer a lot of these, loops. So if you wanted to make a track really fast, you don't have to program every single drum or bass or lead hit. You can use some of these pre-made loops. And there's a whole industry around creating them, and people spend a lot of time and effort to make really nice sounding loops. And if you use them, it's like a way of, it can help solve the blank slate problem. So if you're trying to figure out how to start your track, or you need some element, you can bring in a pre-made loop. It can also be a way to take advantage of all the musical effort that someone else has put into their track, so you can kind of start from a already established starting point. A lot of also entire songs have been made, hits have been made just by taking some loop and starting from that, and then it becomes like this iconic sound in their song. Of course, you often have to pay for these loops, but there are some ones provided with the Cymatic sample packs that we downloaded. If a loop is very old, maybe it's already been used in a bunch of songs. Actually, one of my tracks on TikTok got dinged, or got like content ID matched against someone else's track, I think because we used the same loop. That's like the only explanation I have for it, which is bullshit because my song doesn't sound anything like theirs, but whatever. I'm not bitter. Loops can be like, if you were trying to make a song as fast as possible and you didn't have access to AI, then assembling it from loops would be the way to go. And of course, you can make your own loops. And Ableton provides you a lot of options for manipulating loops so that they can fit to your song or your use case. So let's take let's pick a nice drum loop. Sure. Okay. So we would take that, we would drag it in. You might notice that this one's at 126 beats per minute. And so you can see here that it doesn't quite go. Actually, hold on, I'm going to simplify my setup here real quick. Okay, so let me bring that pattern back in. Yeah, so you can see that it doesn't quite match up with the end of a measure. And that's because it's at a slightly faster tempo than my project is set to, right? I'm at 120. This is at 126. Usually when you buy loops or download them, they'll give you the tempo in there. So if I change my project tempo up here to 126, now it nicely goes all the way to the end of this measure 8. So I've got a nice 4-bar drum loop here. And now if I wanted to make a house track, I've already got this kind of like funky, full-bodied drum sound. I can just start with that, and I can just go. So, I didn't have to program all the kick and the snare and the hi-hats. I just have this, thing pre-made for me. But let's say I did want to use it at a different tempo. Let's say I want to, in fact, the song, the genre of Moombaton was invented when a Dutch house producer played a Dutch house record, usually at 128, but he played it like at 107 or 105 or something, and it sounded really awesome. And so that spawned like an entire genre. And we can very easily do that here too with loops. So if you select this one, and you so you double click on it, and down here on the bottom you have this option to warp it. So if I engage warp speed, now I can change the tempo of my project, and this loop will adjust to match the tempo of my project. One thing you do have to do is you have to type in the BPM of the loop down here. So like it automatically set it to 126, I think, because my project's at 126. But what's up, Mercer?
How did you get that down low view?
If you I bring this in here. If I click away, if I click once on the clip itself, you can click away from it.
It's not working for me. It's not pulling out.
You click the top here?
Yeah.
Oh, let me debug.
Oh, that just happened the first time.
There you go. Cool. Okay, so like let's say I have my track at a more Moombaton-ish tempo of 110. Now when I click my clip and I click warp, it's going to set it to 110 by default, but that's not the right tempo for this loop, right? It's 126. So I need to come in here and type 126 and tell Ableton like, oh, this loop is actually at 126. And you'll notice it's cut off still. Or it's cut off because I've effectively slowed down the loop, but it's a little bit longer. So I have to come up here and hover over the top right corner of the loop. I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's like a square bracket up there. Now I can click and drag that out the rest of the way. And now you can see that it takes up the full 4 measures as it used to, but now it's going to be slowed down. Like this?
Yeah.
Or
it's just
oh wait.
Like expanding size. Mine is
Sorry.
Like a bracket. Mine is bracket.
Do you see little like tick marks? Or wait. Hold on, let me see. It's not a MIDI clip. Oh yeah, okay, so you can see these little like tick marks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Ableton has this, I would actually need to look up it's doing that by default in your case, but it's basically replicating the loop, and if you make a change to the base loop, it'll show up in those copies too. So like these are all copies of the underlying loop that are linked to it, so you can make a change in one place, but you get it automatically in all the copies. I need to look up what that's called, but yeah, it's like a way of, like, you could duplicate the clip a whole bunch of times, and then each copy would be separate, and then if you edited one, it wouldn't change the others, but
convert it to your project's BPM, right? Like,
Yeah, this tells Ableton the BPM of the clip itself, like kind of in a vacuum. And then Ableton, when it applies the warp algorithm, it knows what BPM it's starting from and can accurately match it to your project's tempo.
okay. So like when you set, so like you have your project tempo and you have the clip tempo.
Yep.
Like in theory, like after you apply these changes, the length of the clip should change, right? Because you have something that's like takes a certain number of beats per minute and then is being stretched out to be a different beat per minute.
Yeah. It'll either get longer or shorter depending on if you speed up or slow down the project.
Gotcha. So if I change this to like 150, like in theory,
We've already warped it, so now it knows it can preserve the timing.
okay. So like I would probably do, oh never mind, that's not the right word. So I guess, okay, anyway. Why don't we keep going on?
Okay, you basically just need, as long as you tell Ableton the tempo of your clip, it'll keep it in sync with your project, and that's generally what you do.
Cool, thank you.
Let's see, how do we summon the mini window that shows the BPM gain, etc. of the loop? Okay. Yes, Ali, to answer your question, so to get this window down here on the clip, you click the top part, the top header of the clip in the arrangement view. So, or I guess you can also put looks like you can also put your cursor there. But if I do it by clicking up here. And then to answer Disaster Roar, your question, I will have the slides available, but also this the recording of this stream will be available, so you'll be able to watch it afterwards. And I apologize for the ads. I recently hit 1,000 subscribers, so, and I made my first $100 off of ads, so helps helps make this side hustle. I don't know, pay for my beer money or something. But I'll try to keep pausing the ads so it doesn't interrupt the stream too much. I haven't figured out how to. I'm not even sure it's possible to turn off the ads completely. But yeah, the recording will be available. Yeah, I know the slides don't really have all that much content on them to be either. Yeah, but let's see. So now we can warp our drum beats. We can speed it up. And this can be a nice tool for creativity where you can take a drum loop that's made for some, for some genre, like let's say you take a psytrance drum loop and you slow it down and then you can use it in your house track. And so it's a way of getting, more juice out of your loops. But to answer your question about what these other, Ableton has several warping algorithms built into it. My go-to is complex. But I don't think that's available in all versions. But the one you want to use for drums is this one called Beats. And, it's a special algorithm for preserving drum beats. You can set it to, by default it preserves the transients. These are the beginning pieces of a particular audio sample where the volume changes really quickly and it gives it's like the start of the sound and it gives it a very, it's part of what makes up the character of a sound. And Ableton has a really good algorithm for detecting when that happens. And then this number here, this slider that goes from 0 to 100, this is a parameter of the algorithm that tells Ableton how much of the individual drum hit to preserve. So if I have it set to 100, it'll keep the whole thing. So like this. And as I start to bring it down, you'll see that the drum hits get clipped and get shorter. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I guess this parameter only applies when you have this other parameter of the beats warp mode set. So by default, you have this like back and forth arrow thing, and that tells Ableton like when you're warping it, play the sample forward and then play it backwards, and that as a way to fill in whatever time you need. I generally prefer to use this mode where it, because if you think about hitting a drum, it plays the drum, like physically you hit a drum, the sound happens once, it doesn't continue, right? It's not like bowing a violin where, the sound will be continuous as long as you're bowing the violin. It's like, however much energy is in that initial impact when you hit the drum, that's all you get. So this mode will play the sample once to its end and then stop. So it'll be more realistic to a drum. And so that reason, when you start dragging this slider down, I know we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here, but since you asked, I figured I'd mention it. But so now this is going to play like 75% of the sample, or 50, or 25. Like each hit that Ableton detects, that's only going to play like a fragment of it now. And you might want to use, like, if you have a really full-bodied drum loop that takes up a lot of space in the mix, you might want to bring this down so it sounds a little bit more sparse and leaves room for other elements in your track. But generally, it's at a high level, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. What's up?
So it's bringing down the amplitude of when the transient kicks in. Is that?
It's more like it's bringing. Here, I'll show you by rendering it out.
It's thinning out the sound, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a lot going on, it just thins out what you're actually hearing and what's being played amongst all of those bits.
Oh, I see. So
is that what you mean?
Yeah. See, like before I shorten them, they're like kind of thick horizontally, and now when I apply that warping and reduce the transient time, it thins everything out.
I see. So it's changing the time constant, but the peak is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Control Z, Control Y.
Actually, the peak came down a bit as well.
Yeah. I set it to a pretty small value here, so it's taking away a lot of that. A lot of the body of the sound. And yeah, so I would encourage you also to try to playing around with some of these other algorithms just to get a sense of what they sound like. But for me, I generally either use Beats for drums or Complex for everything else. Complex Pro has some additional knobs that I don't know what they do, so I just stick with Complex. Like when I'm making a DJ set, I also just use the Complex mode. And by the way, you could drag in an entire song here, and then warp it, and then set your clip to that tempo. And then if you're transitioning between two songs, it'll preserve the tempo. Like if you, I wonder if I can show one of my. Oh yeah. Some of y'all were at that event. But yeah, like I have this one. I have my master tempo here, so I'm gradually bringing up the tempo throughout my set. But because I have these songs set warped to their home tempo, it'll still sound good even as I'm changing the tempo of the project. It gives you a lot of flexibility over what tempo you want to play tracks back at.
Could you, I guess, show what happens if it's not warped, like how it gets messed up?
Let's see. If you don't warp it, then no matter what you set the tempo of your project to, it'll stay the same. The clip will stay the same.
So even if you're changing the global tempo, that sample is going to remain the same?
Yeah. So like for a one shot, you probably wouldn't need to warp it necessarily. I don't know. I'll bring up some loop here. Yeah. So all right. So it's, you can set Ableton to warp loops by default. So that's, if you really want it, if that's like your typical workflow. I tend to have it not set to loop by default, but So I'm adjusting my project tempo, and the length of the clip is getting longer apparently, but that's just because each measure is now taking less time because the tempo is faster. Or here, each measure now takes more time, so it looks like the clip is shorter, but it itself does not change. I mean, this is effectively moving where the playback head is. Let's see, I heard some Discord blinky boos. How do we summon the... Oh. Ale, did we answer your question? It's not showing when you simply click there.
Double click, right?
I am not sure I can diagnose your issue without seeing your screen. I know, Mercer, you were having some issues, but then it worked after you clicked it? Okay, you double clicked it and it worked. Okay, cool. Yeah, I might have changed some of my defaults. I'm not entirely sure, but okay. So, all right. So we're warping. We've got our we've got the BPM of our track set. Let's see, what other things can we do? So we can transpose the clip. So we have this pitch slider here. We can move it up and down by up to 4 octaves. Oops, sorry. Let me bring down to our Moomba remix here. Kind of sounds weird with drums, but sometimes you want like a deeper kind of drum sound, so maybe you'd transpose it by 1 step, or transpose it up. Kind of sounds weird with the drums, but this will make more sense when we start bringing in some tonal elements. So, let's say, okay, we got our drum loop. Why don't we find a bass loop and stack it on top? So let's see. Not drums. Synths, maybe? No. Dubstep? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So this is probably gonna sound crazy because it's at 150, and we're gonna warp it down to 110. But so you can see now now because I've warped it, I get these 2 loops which are from completely different sample packs, whatever. But now they line up perfectly with each other because I've warped them both. I think we just invented a new genre, y'all. But we could play it at now if we bring it up to 150, it'll sound... I don't know what this is, but someone might want to dance to it. But now you can see how we can stack up these loops and start building tracks out of them. So let's touch on this transposition parameter again. But we can see that this bass loop is in F minor. So if we want to layer some kind of let's say we want to layer, I don't know, I haven't looked through all these, but there's got to be some cool synth, right? Or maybe a vocal? Yeah, that's pretty annoying, but let's throw it in there. All right, so first we warp it to be the desired tempo. So let's bring it to 128. Oh, this is a long one. Okay, well, good for us. And then so we can also shorten our clip. And so it's in A sharp minor. The bass is in F minor, so it's probably not going to sound that great. Ugh. Okay, so let's transpose this vocal loop into F minor. So I'm trying to keep this whole class music theory light. So you might not know how to go from A sharp to F minor. So what I would do is I would look this up. How many steps is A sharp from F? A sharp to F is 5 half steps or semitones. Okay, so I need to select this clip, and I'm going to pitch it down by 5. And now I get this. And now it's in the same key.
Sounds way better.
It sounds way better, and for some definition of better. Or, it sounds better, but maybe not good, but, it's at least in the same key. So this is how we can, get different, loops that are in different keys to play nicely with each other. If you know the circle of fifths, we could also take this A sharp. Actually, well, we could put it up 2 steps to a C, and that might sound not too bad. Anyway, the point is this: you would use this transposition tool to get your get the key of your loops to play nicely with each other. I wonder if there's like a actual vocal. Yeah, one of the there's all sorts of drum and bass and so on loops out there, but one thing that producers are always looking for is a really nice vocal, like that has a beautiful hook, that's got a beautiful singing voice, interesting lyrics, etc. Like if you can find a good vocalist to work for, they're like worth their weight in gold. And when you think about like what does a producer even do, it's like, well, you're trying to produce a track, and you don't produce a track by just throwing together drums and guitars and synths and so on, whatever. You have like this core idea, this theme, this story that you're trying to tell, and that's where the vocal comes in. And of course, people want to hear, people can connect really well to the human voice because we're all humans here. If you're just making background music, let's say for a TV show, then maybe you don't want a vocal because you don't want it to distract from like whatever the people are talking about. But finding good vocals is like something producers are always on the hunt for. And when a new vocal pack is dropped, like there'll be a flood of people trying to be the first one to make the iconic mix of that vocal. And if you spend enough time dredging through the sample packs, you'll eventually be like, oh my god, I've heard this one on a record before. But now I can just remix it if I want. I had that experience the other day. What's up?
Do people also do like instrumental solos and stuff like that as well? Or?
Yeah. Like Splice has, look up guitar solo. So yeah, there can certainly be iconic lead lines played by other instruments. I think we just connect humans connect to vocals the best.
Hey David.
What's up?
How do you search out loop again, like across your, if you drag a sample?
So, let's see. Well, you can, if you put your cursor up here in the upper right corner, you can shorten or lengthen it. But there is a way to set it so that it will start creating additional linked copies of the loop. Let me create linked copy of loop. This is not a workflow I typically do. Let's see. Control C. Oh, Alt? Is that it? No. Oh, wait. Is that it?
Yeah. Mine was in the upper right-hand corner, and I try to drag it to extend that. It won't do it.
Okay. Yeah, what I typically do is I'll select the clip and I'll press Control D to duplicate it.
Okay.
So now I can, have more drums. There's got to be some way to change it so that when you drag it, it automatically creates copies where they're linked, and if you change the first sort of master copy, it propagates those changes out. I just would need to look up how to do that, and I'm not sure what to Google to do that, but if you can duplicate the clips. So if you want to start getting into some arranging, maybe I I'll just play drums and bass at first, and then I'll bring in the vocal, so I start to create like a sense of progression to the track. And then maybe I'd like add in another loop to add more energy or interest into the loop, or into my track. Let's see. You can also click on a clip and hit tab. Oops. What do you mean?
Oh, he was asking about how to bring up the view with the gain and the BPM.
Oh, tab? Really?
Yeah, it'll switch between the rack of like the VSCs you have.
Okay.
Track, and then if you hit tab, it'll switch between the two.
Okay. Why don't y'all play around with like combining different loops while I run to the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, I'm sure you fetch a lot on groups later, so I'm guessing it's required.
Let's make some fire shit.
Shift tab. Shift tab.
Shift tab. Okay. Interesting. Okay. That makes sense. And then maybe if I want to progress the song further, I'll take the drums out for the next loop. By the way, you can select multiple clips the same way I was doing with the tracks. You can either you can click and then hold Shift and click the bottom one to select a whole group. You can also select like segments of them, and your selection will transcend the track boundary and select multiple clips across tracks. Then you can duplicate those. So, see.
What's the duplicate button that you're using now?
Control D or Command D on Mac. So now I can create like an infinite amount of music, and it's so easy, and this will just play forever, and I don't have to do any work. I don't have to sit there and play an instrument. But computers are really good at copying things, so we can take advantage of that. But let's see. So let's say I delete that. Okay, so there, for the third loop, I take the drums out. So now I'm starting to get like an energetic progression, kind of a flow to it, right? I'm creating kind of like a gap, a lack in this third loop part that will create a sense of anticipation in the listener. So that sounds good. breakdown, right? So you can start like playing with these loops, bringing them in, bringing them out, and you can create this like start to get the progression that creates what a song is. What's up, Anuj?
When you're doing the pitch shifting, the thing downstairs, that was no, that was half steps. No, what was?
Yeah, these are half steps.
These are half steps. Okay.
So 12 is an octave.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 12 notes in an octave in Western music. Not the only musical system, not to be imperialist, but it's the one we're gonna study in this class. Let's see. Let's see, Michael. If your loop is at 126, you need to click into it, select warp, and then change the BPM of the clip to 126, which you can see in the title of the loop up there. Does that answer your question, Michael?
What does the BPM sound like it's having when you double it?
Like if you were to do
like
the
if I
two.
change the BPM of a 128 song, at least on my computer, the beats per minute are halved for some reason.
Let's see. Wait, sorry, what?
So if I do that.
Okay. Yeah, you're basically telling Ableton to double the speed or double the BPM of the clip. And if you press the /2 button, it automatically divides it. So if you do it again, it'll get really fast probably. So this idea of powers of 2 with the BPM, this is what I was kind of saying to John earlier, like a track at 75 and a track at 150 can be overlaid perfectly on top of each other in 4/4 time, that is, but we're doing 4/4 time. Do you need some power?
Yeah, I need some power.
Okay. There's power strip over here. Did you bring your charger? Let's see. Yeah, and Michael, did you get my note about like warping the clip and setting the clip's tempo to be the same BPM as it says in the title of the clip? Sound off in the Discord if so. Okay. Let's see. Another. So let's say I have like a dubstep beat. All right, so another thing you can do is you can take segments of the clip and chop them up to use for your own purposes. So let's say I have this dubstep loop. It's at 140. I'm going to warp it. Now it sounds like this. But maybe I want to use the kick and hi-hat here and make like a house beat out of it. So I'm gonna select this little segment. Now I can click duplicate, or I can press duplicate, do that a few times. And now I get like a 4 on the floor type of beat. Right? And then maybe I can select these 4 and duplicate them again. And then it'll switch into this dubstep mode and it'll sound really like emphatic when it switches it up, right? Right, so now I can take little snippets of the loops and repeat them, rearrange them. I can probably turn this house beat into a dubstep loop somehow. Let's see.
How do you dynamically group like make like an entity out of like a song?
Oh yeah,
sort of thing?
yeah. So Anuj asked, how do you make a group out of these like separate clips? So if you select these clips, by holding Shift and clicking, you can right click and you can say consolidate. Control J. And now this thing is its own loop, and I can, warp it and change it as desired. Or, I can treat it as its own little loop. Mm-hmm. And let's see, what's another good one I can use? Oh yeah, I mentioned grooves here. So down in your side panel, you have this groove section. And what a groove is it's like an abstract rhythmic pattern that you can apply onto a warped clip. So like in this case, my dubstep groove is, or my original dubstep beat is pretty like straight ahead, right? Like every hit is, you can see it's like right on the beat. But if I want to jazz it up a little bit, maybe I'll come in here to the grooves thing, the grooves side panel, and I'll get some swing eighths. And you can hear the preview of them, right? Probably a little more obvious with the swing 16ths. And then, a less swung feel is this 52. It's more like straight ahead.
This is like the swing percentage thing.
Yeah, it's like swing percentage maybe you've seen on other DAWs. But I'll pick this just so it's like really obvious. And then I'm going to click and drag it onto my clip. And now, because I've warped it, it's got this swing eighths on. I think this should sound a little funkier. Right? I'll bring it up to the tone tempo. Oh, and then this needs to be extended out a little bit. And I can turn this off. Right now it sounds straight ahead again. But yeah, that's like an easy way you can add a little bit of groove or feel to a loop and get a little bit more interest out of it, if you like.
How did you add it to the loop?
Yeah, so you come in here in your side panel, you select a groove that you like. I went with swing eighths because most of these hits are, eighth notes. And then I just clicked and dragged it onto the clip itself. And then it shows up in this, it shows up down here. So if I add maybe I don't want the swing to be quite so extreme, I'll bring in the swing eighths 59 preset. Now I've got, it's down here. So one other thing too, one common workflow is to work on a section of your beat, like just have it loop over and over again while you adjust parameters and dial in that sound that you want. So you can select a segment, let's say, and you can click this loop button. Why did that? Hold on one second. To loop a section of the audio, you select it and you press Control L, and then it puts these loop markers around that section. And now when I play this back, it will just loop around to the beginning again. And now I can just iterate on this one section. Maybe I want to, hear how it sounds. Maybe I want to hear how it sounds at, 119. Maybe I want to hear how it sounds with no swing. So EDM tracks are often built in sections of 8 measures at a time. So maybe you'd loop your 8 measures and you'd tweak different parameters as the loop repeats until you get it sounding just how you like it, and then you can move on to the next part of your project. Yeah, so I think that covers everything about loops. I would, as part of the homework, you're going to play around with these loops and, combine them, arrange them. Don't have to be too serious about it at this stage. Keep it playful and just like kind of experiment with what kind of sounds you get from combining different loops from the sample packs, or wherever else. If you want to pay for some loops on Splice, you can do that. I do want to touch on reverb and sends really quick. So I'm just going to solo this drum loop. So it might sound kind of dry on its own, but if I bring this send up, I'm now going to, by default, this first one is wired into a reverb send. So the signal, a copy of the signal will get sent to this reverb send, and now I can add some reverb onto my track, and it will create this sense of space as I bring up this slider here. So listen to this. So what reverb does is it gives your sounds a sense of being in a specific place. If it's like a cathedral or maybe a small room, it's kind of like the most important effect for making your sound feel kind of organic and alive. You don't want to add too much because it'll make your sound muddy and unclear. But a touch of it will give your sounds a sense that they're actually in a certain space. And of course, there's like extremely creative things that we'll do with it later in the class. But this is just like a quick way that is set up by default that you can get a little bit of that live organic room sound on different tracks in your mix. And why would you use this? Like, you could also get this effect by putting a reverb on your track. So I could come in here to my audio effects. I could go down here to my reverb, and I can click and drag my reverb down here into the place where it conveniently says drop audio effects here. And now I have a reverb on my drums, and I can change the dry wet knob to get less or more reverb sound. So right? But then if I want other things to also go through this reverb, now I have to make copies of it. And that can start to add up on your CPU. And also, to create a consistent sound to the listener, it can be helpful to have everything going to the same reverb. So it's like, oh, all these instruments are in the same room. They're in the same space. So if you use the send, you can send all of your drums to that same reverb. And you don't have to make a bunch of different reverbs. I could also, if this were a group of individual drum samples, I could also put the reverb on that group. Yeah, so this little negative infinity slider here is the A send. This one's the B send. So by default, it's a delay. I think if you come over here, you can in the mixer view, you can also adjust that same parameter here. Maybe it's a little bit more clear. But there's a delay set up over here.
Is there just one reverb and one delay send location? Or can you have multiple reverb and delay locations? Like destinations?
You can add, I think, like I can add more, I guess these are called returns, but I can add a new, so when the knob is called a send, and I guess the track itself is called a return. But yeah, now I could add like, maybe I want a really big reverb for my my pads and my background sounds. Maybe I want a smaller reverb for my vocal so I can maintain some clarity, or like other lead instruments. So yeah, I can get, and it would also make the lead sound kind of more upfront and in your face compared to the textures, which I want to be kind of diffuse and blurry in the background. So I could, have a background, and then this one would be like or background reverb or something. And then this would be the foreground reverb or lead verb, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so then you can have different different reverbs on the different sends. Sorry, Michael asked, wasn't the point to be able to change the BPM to a different one than in the title? Okay, I think I see what you're asking. After you've warped your individual clip to a given BPM, in this case 126, now I can change the project tempo to be something other than 110, and the clip will preserve its timbre even as I'm changing the speed at which it's played back, right? Or, does that answer your question, Michael? Maybe? Okay, and then in the few minutes we have left, the way you export your beautiful music is you go to File, Export, and then you can tell it how where to start exporting from and how long to export from. Usually what I'll do is I'll just select I'll come down to the main channel here and I'll select I want to export this much, and then I'll do File, Export. It by default exports as WAV, which is uncompressed CD quality audio. You can also have it generate an MP3 or turn it on and off. But now when you export it, now you get EDM 101 session 1. Oh, of course it already exists. Now you get a rendered audio clip that you can post to SoundCloud and share it with the world. So, and part of your homework will be to make an account on SoundCloud so that you can easily share your music, maybe even go viral. Go
viral for homework.
Yes. So yeah, your homework will be to create an account on SoundCloud, play around with these loops, chopping them, arranging them, organizing them into a flow. In the next session, we'll get more into how do you create a drop or a progression that someone would actually want to listen to. But for now, just kind of play around with stacking the different loops on top of each other, warping them, chopping them up, transposing them, etc. And then if you want to get a head start on Wednesday, you can watch this tutorial I made. This is about programming drum beats from scratch, which I think will maybe be kind of touch on what you were talking about, Anuj. And then if you do that, you can try to pick some EDM songs that you like and recreate the drum beats from them. But really, I would just, I'd be curious to hear what sort of, what's the word, collages y'all come up with assembling loops together. And then we'll play some of those back tomorrow at the start of class. But yeah, any last minute questions? Anything I wanted?
Any slides in the Discord or?
Oh yeah, I'll share the slides in the Discord. I'll post the homework as well, and I'll send follow-up emails after every class as well. Let's see, share. Anyone with a link on the internet can view my beautiful slides. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to, we're out of time, but hopefully, that orients y'all on Ableton a little bit, and I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Mm-hmm.
I just want to do polyrhythmic stuff where you have two things going on at different tempos, because it doesn't snap to the grid, right?
Yeah. Like in tear out dubstep, they'll often have quintuplet meters.
Yeah.
For that, I would probably need to show how to do that in MIDI. But even something with a quintuplet meter will last, 1 or 2 or 4 bars, and then.
No, because it will not line up with the measured, right? If it's polymeters, it will like the beats will be with the beats.
Yeah.
But if it's polyrhythm, then you have a different number of beats in a given measure. Right?
Yeah. I'm not sure how much support Ableton has for that natively. I mean, you can change your project from 4/4 time to something else, if you want. Make some prog rock in 7/16. But you can make each individual clip. Sure, thank you. You can make. See ya. Yeah. But yeah, like if you make like a MIDI clip, you can program. You can start programming the hits to be like. You could do like 3/4. You could do something really insane like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 6. But if I wanted to make a. Does this work? But yeah, you can like in MIDI. I think you have 960 ticks that.
So you can just do the fraction computation yourself and just put the thing.
Yeah.
Like if you have triplets or. Yeah.
Triplets are natively supported. Like if you, Ableton does have a triplet grid.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty helpful. I guess triplets start. I mean, quintuplets and stuff you don't use them that often anyways. So.
Yeah. If you're if you're making like dubstep, then you want that like crazy 5-meter kind of sound, then you have to like manually make it. But then once you make that one clip and it, because in this example it lasts 2 beats.
Yeah.
Now I can copy that and it will last. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, right. It's just well, I mean, like that. Okay, I'm gonna say this. Yeah. Technical problems. Yeah.
Oh.
Accidentally.
It's okay. We'll turn it back. All right.